Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a full face of makeup that I'm planning on decluttering. I'm not 100% sure about some of these, so I do want to give them one more try before I decide to get rid of them. Maybe I'll end up keeping some of them if I can make them work, but honestly, most of these I already know that I don't like. I just want to give them one final chance, try them on camera, and show you how they apply, tell you a little bit about why I don't like them. So this first one is from Wet n Wild. This is the Impossible Primer, and this one claims to be silicone free. It also says that it mattifies, hydrates, blurs pores, and makes your makeup last longer, but I don't feel like this does anything for me. If anything, it almost makes my pores look worse. I also don't like how this product dispenses. I think it's just the texture. It comes out really like stiff and it's hard to take out of the tube. It kind of just like crumbles everywhere. It does kind of look like a silicone based primer, but it almost like melts onto the skin and feels a little bit cooling. See, it just like crumbled again. I don't like that. If anything, this almost makes my pores look worse. It kind of makes this area look shiny, which I don't like. That's the opposite of what I want to do. I'm also putting some on the center of my forehead. Like, do you see a difference in my pores? Because I don't really see anything. It kind of just makes me look shiny. So I am gonna be decluttering this. I don't see the point in keeping it because it doesn't do anything for me. So yeah, this is gonna go. Next up, I have the E.L.F. Camo CC Cream, and this one I'm pretty sure went viral on TikTok. I think when it was first released, because I do remember hearing a lot about this. I've tried it a few times and it always looks really heavy on me. It's very drying as well. I'm gonna start with one pump because I remember a little bit goes a long way. So I might have been using too much product. Maybe that was the problem. And they do recommend using this with the E.L.F. Complexion Duo Brush, which I do have. And I do really like this brush, so let's see. I have the shade Light 240W, by the way. The color seems to match me pretty well. It's really yellow, which I do appreciate. This is actually yellow enough for me, which a lot of foundations aren't, even when they claim to have a yellow undertone. I'm just doing one half of my face at a time in case it dries quickly. Okay, so far, not bad. I don't know if my skin improved or something since the last time that I tried this, but it doesn't look too dry on me. Maybe I did use too much product when I was testing this out. So let me do the other half of my face, see how I feel about it. But so far it doesn't look that bad, which is good actually. I'm glad that I'm trying this again. And I'm gonna do one more pump actually because I almost used the full pump for one half of my face. It's definitely a thicker foundation, which I don't really enjoy. I usually don't like foundations with this kind of texture because they tend to look heavy on me, but this one isn't looking too bad so far. And then I always apply whatever's left on the brush to my nose. So it is starting to look a little bit cakey, especially around my nose and in between my brows. I feel like it's kind of just sitting on my skin. It's not really meshing with my skin. So I'm gonna tap over it with my E.L.F. Total Face Sponge. So especially here on my forehead, I feel like this is where it looks the worst. This and around my nose. And I didn't end up using that full second pump, so I don't feel like I used too much product, but maybe I did. Maybe I should have just done one pump for my entire face, but I felt like I needed a little bit more. So I know I'm being very indecisive, but I think I am gonna be keeping this because now that I went over it with a sponge, it's looking a lot better and not as cakey or heavy. It doesn't look like it's just sitting on my skin anymore. I think I just needed to pat over it with a sponge. It really seemed to do the trick. So I think I'm gonna keep this for now, see if I can make it work with other primers or even just no primer. and I'll probably mix this into other foundations because I really like the undertone of this foundation. It's very yellow toned, which I do need so that I can mix it with other foundations and boost the coverage as well. So I think I'm gonna keep this for now. I know I was gonna declutter it, but I kind of like it. I don't hate it as much as I thought I would. Next up, I have the Catrice True Skin High Coverage Concealer, and I do have two shades in this. I have the shades 20 Warm Beige and 32 Neutral Biscuit. Neither of these shades work for me, unfortunately. Even the lightest shade, which is Warm Beige, is too deep for my under eyes, but I don't like the finish of this concealer. It looks a little bit shiny on my under eyes, and it also feels like it never really sets. It always feels sticky, so I don't like that. And on top of that, it just doesn't have the amount of coverage that I thought it would. I would say this is more like medium coverage at most, even though it says that it's a high coverage concealer. See, this shade is a little too dark for me. It claims to not settle into your lines, but I disagree with that. That's actually the reason why I don't like this concealer. It's probably the worst thing about it. I love their other concealer. I forget what it's called, but I think it's their HD concealer. I would say that one is my holy grail concealer. I've worn it to so many concerts and it lasts all night, and even in the heat. It's just like the best concealer in my collection, and it looks so smooth on my under eyes. Nothing compares to it. Yeah, I just don't like the way it settles into my lines, so I'm decluttering this one for sure. I have another product from E.L.F. This is the E.L.F. Putty Bronzer in the shade Honey Drip. So this one I've used a few times, and I honestly don't know how I feel about it because sometimes it looks good, sometimes it doesn't, and it's just a little bit finicky. I think it's because of the moussey texture. It's just like a kind of tricky to work with texture in my opinion when it comes to cream blushes and bronzers. I just end up not liking blushes and bronzers that have this kind of formula. But this is the shade Honey Drip. It's a really good shade for me. It's not too warm, not too cool. I feel like this is a good neutral shade. I just don't love the texture. So I'm gonna wipe off the E.L.F. Complexion Duo brush. I'm gonna use that to apply it. I just feel like I have to keep dipping back in order to get enough product, so I'm not a fan of that. I don't mind when cheek products are more on the sheer side, but this one I feel like is a little too sheer for me. I think I just have other cream bronzers in my collection that I prefer over this, so this one just doesn't stand out to me. I'm gonna add a little bit to my jawline. So it did apply better today than the other times that I've tried it, but even then, there's just something missing for me with this bronzer. I don't know exactly what that is, but it just doesn't wow me, so I don't see the point in keeping it. This might be a little bit controversial, but I'm not the biggest fan of the Natasha Denona Glam face palette. This is the light one. They do have a deeper one as well. But for me, what really didn't work out were the cheek products. The eyeshadows are fine. There's nothing really wrong with them, although I do prefer the formula in the Retro palette. That's the only other Natasha Denona palette that I've tried, so I don't have much to compare these eyeshadows to. But as far as the cheek products, I just can't get the cream blush to work. The highlighter's fine, although it's a little intense for me, but it's okay. It's more of the cream blush. It's a really pretty shade. It looks like a natural sort of everyday blush, but I don't like the texture. I don't like the way that it looks on my cheeks. It kind of just like sits on my cheeks. I'm gonna apply it with this E.L.F. Beautifully Bare brush. This is the one that I use for cream blushes. I'm really digging into the blush because I do remember it being very sheer and having to build it up quite a bit, so I'm really digging my brush in there, and this is how much product I picked up. I don't know how it's looking on camera, but it does look like a really light natural blush. Even though I did pick up a lot of product, it just doesn't look like I did. It didn't pick up my foundation, which is good, and it blended fine, but I think the fact that it's in a face palette, I would prefer to like every single product in here to justify the price. And then the highlighter, even though it's really pretty, again, it's just too intense for me. I also just realized that I haven't set my under eyes, which I normally do before going in with highlighters, so it's kind of a weird order that I'm doing my makeup today, but I'm gonna make it work. So as of now, I think I am gonna declutter this. There's someone in my family who I think would really enjoy this, so I'd rather just pass it along. But other than that, I would say the eyeshadows are really pretty, especially the shimmers, and the mattes blend fine. It's just more of the cheek products that I don't really like. So I do have two powders that I'm gonna be trying, and one of them I know for sure that I'm getting rid of because it's very much expired. This one from L'Oreal, this is the Infallible Loose Setting Powder in Translucent Light Medium. This one I've tried, I think, a total of 3 times. I remember trying it in a Testing You drugstore makeup video about a year and a half ago, and I remember liking it, but for some reason I just haven't been reaching for it. I think I used it once after that video and once before, so overall I don't know why I keep forgetting about this. I think it's just because I have other powders in my collection that I really enjoy, so I always forget about this one. It is a translucent powder, but I don't know why it says that it's a translucent light medium powder. I guess it does have like a little bit of tint to it, but it's mostly translucent. I don't remember it darkening my under eyes, which is good, especially because the concealer that I used today is a little too dark for my under eyes. This powder is super, super finely milled, so it does get all over the place. And I guess I'll use it down my T-zone. It does seem to be a more mattifying setting powder, which I do prefer for oil control. I do get very oily throughout the day. I do like it so far, and maybe I will keep it for now just to see how it works with other concealers and foundations that I really enjoy. This powder from NYX, this one I am getting rid of because it's really, really old. I think I've had this for at least 5 years, which I should have gotten rid of it a long time ago, but this is the NYX #NoFilter finishing powder. I think technically with finishing powders, you're supposed to use them after like a regular loose setting powder. I could be wrong about that, but I'm just gonna use it on the rest of my face and see how it looks. I have used this a few times, but I remember not really caring for it. It also might be a little bit too light for my face. I think it did kind of lighten my foundation, but we'll see. Oh yeah, this powder is definitely expired. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it has these little like bumps in the middle, which weren't there when I first purchased this, so it's definitely expired, but I'm gonna use it anyway. Why not try it one more time before I get rid of it? I'm just really curious as to how this powder looks, because if I do end up really liking it, I might repurchase it in the future. I don't know, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. So just setting my entire face, and I don't remember if this gives any sort of coverage. It's been such a long time since I used this powder. I want to say the last time I used it was maybe like 3 years ago, maybe more actually. This might tone down the blush a little bit, but oh well. I'm not seeing anything bad going on now that I used it to set the rest of my face. And this is in the shade Light Beige, by the way. I don't think I mentioned what shade this was. But other than that, I would say this powder has like a natural finish. I'm not seeing any glow, but it also doesn't look like it mattified a lot. It is a really pretty powder. This is expired, so it's gonna have to go. Maybe I will try it one day, like if I see it on sale, and that's if that's even available anymore. I don't know if they even make this, Next up, I have the Colourpop Party Proof Eye Primer. And I have tried this several times and it works fine as an eyeshadow primer, but it's more of the packaging that I don't like. It does have a flat applicator, but I would say this one would be better off as a squeezy tube because of the texture. Not a lot comes out on the applicator, so I do have to keep like dipping into the tube to get enough product. But yeah, it's a good eyeshadow primer. There's nothing really wrong with it. I just, again, don't like the packaging. It's kind of annoying. See, like right now it got a little more product than usual, but I'm gonna have to dip in for my other eye. It doesn't have any sort of coverage either, but it does seem to even out my eyelids overall, even though it doesn't have coverage. I think just because it's a silicone-based primer, it makes everything look smoother. I don't know why this time that I used it, enough product came out. Other times I do have to dip in a couple of times for each eye because not much comes out, but for some reason, when I'm filming it today, enough came out, so I guess that's good, but it's just unpredictable. So I do have 3 eyeshadow palettes from Wet n Wild. These are their, I think, newly reformulated Color Icon palettes. So these 2 are their 5-pan palettes, and then I have one of their 10-pan. I remember having this one in the older packaging a few years ago, but I'm pretty sure I decluttered it because I didn't see it anywhere in my makeup collection. I would say the mattes in here are fine. I don't remember having any issues with them. It's more of the shimmers and glitters, especially this one. The silver in here is really lackluster, and then the glitter is really messy and chunky. So I really have only used the mattes in here a couple of times. The shimmers were just like not good. I don't know the name of this one because it doesn't have the name on the packaging. And then this one, this is more of a warm tone palette, and it has a really pretty green shade, which I was excited about, but it is very lackluster. And the mattes in here I do actually like. I have used them a few times. And then the 10-pan palette, this has some really pretty shades, but again, it's just the formula that I don't like. So I'm probably gonna dip into all 3 palettes because I really wanna test them out. But I'm gonna start with this shade right here from this 5-pan palette. This is probably my most used matte shade out of all 3 palettes that I have. It's a really pretty like transition shade, so I'm gonna take that on a fluffy blending brush. This one does have quite a bit of kick up, so I'm really tapping off the excess, but I'm just gonna blend that into the crease. See, like this shade blends fine. It's quite pigmented actually. I didn't have to build it up that much, so I would say that's one of the better mattes in the palettes. So next I'm dipping into this deeper brown mustardy shade from the warmer palette, and I'm gonna focus that on the outer corners. This shade is pretty pigmented as well. I didn't remember how pigmented it was. And then with that same brush, I'm gonna take this deep kind of like cranberry shade from the 10-pan palette, and I'm just gonna go right over top of it, I think. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to dip into all the palettes and use as many shades as I can. So just going right over top of it. So this shade is also blending out fine. And then going back into the crease with that first transition shade. And then I think for my lids, I'm gonna take this shade from the 10-pan palette. I remember this shade being a little bit crumbly, but it still looks really pretty. It's one of the better shimmers, I would say. I think especially if you wet this shade, it might look even better, but I just don't tend to do that. Yeah, really pretty, but it does have a little bit of fallout, so I'm gonna try to clean that up in a little bit. So I am gonna use one of the deeper shades in the palettes to line my upper lash line. I'm just having a hard time deciding which shade to use. This 10 pan does have a black eyeshadow in it. I don't know that I want to go that intense. And then the 5 pan palette with the glitter has this really deep brown shade. So I think I'm going to use this one actually. So I'm just pressing that onto my lash line. And then I'm going to take that mustardy brown shade for my lower lash line. Then I'm going to buff it out with that transition shade that I used. And then the only shade that I could really use to highlight my inner corners is maybe this one from the warmer 5 pan palette. Okay, so there is one more shade that I could use as an inner corner highlight because I'm not loving the way that this one is looking. It's a little too gold for this look. So I'm gonna take this one from the 10 pan palette and go right over top of it. This one's a little more champagne, I would say, not quite as gold. Yeah, this palette gets very messy. I think the mattes are just really dusty, so I am gonna pass these along. I don't see myself reaching for any of these palettes again. They're not like the worst drugstore palettes that I've ever tried, but I just don't really need them in my collection. I went ahead and did my brows and mascara off camera because I don't have any products in those categories that I'm trying to get rid of. But I do have another blush and bronzer that I'm going to be applying. This is the Jaclyn Cosmetics Bronze and Blushing Duo. And I don't know the exact name of this duo, but I'm pretty sure it's the light medium warm duo. But this one has the warm flush blush and the Golden Goddess bronzer. I'm pretty sure those are it, unless it's like the other way around. I don't like these because of the finish. I just don't love the way that they look on my skin. They're a little bit like dusty and almost too sheer. I'm probably gonna declutter this. I have tried it multiple times and I've tried to make it work, but I just never like the way that these look on me. They're not really like matte, at least like the blush doesn't look like it has a matte finish, but the bronzer is pretty matte, even though it doesn't look like it would be. Again, I just don't love the finish. I feel like I have to really build them up in order for them to show the way that I want. Maybe I'm just being really picky. I'm gonna give them one more chance before I decide to declutter them. So going in with the bronzer first. I kind of wish that this bronzer had more of a glowy finish because the blush does seem pretty glowy. So I wish that the bronzer was also that formula. I don't know if that's just me. Let me know if you've tried this duo and if you like it or not. Maybe I'm just being really, really picky here. I think if you like a more natural blush and bronzer look, then maybe you would like this. Maybe that's what I'm not loving about it. So that is the bronzer. And again, not bad. I'm not saying it's a terrible bronzer formula, but it's just not something that I find myself reaching for. I'm gonna go ahead and apply the blush now. I think I also don't like how chunky the packaging is. I feel like it could have been a lot slimmer. It's nice and heavy. It does feel like a higher end product, but it's definitely not my favorite packaging. I don't know how it's showing up on camera, but I feel like I have to really like build it up. I don't know, something about the finish just doesn't do it for me, especially for being a duo. I would prefer to like both of them. So I think I am decluttering this. I have a couple of lip products from Uoma Beauty, and I'm not sure if this was a collaboration or maybe like an extension of the brand, but these are the Uoma Beauty by Sharon C. It's complicated lip tint plus oil plus gloss. So this is a bit of a hybrid lip formula, and the reason I don't like these is because of the texture. They're very, very liquidy, so they move around on my lips way too easily. I feel like they get on my teeth really quickly. As much as I like the shades, especially this one, this is more of a like terracotta brownie nude shade. This one is called Casually Lit. I love this shade, but again, it's just really messy. And then this one is really pretty as well. This is more of a mauvey pinky shade, and this one is the shade Softie. So I'm gonna go ahead and try them on my lips right now. Even though I have tried them before, I just want to show you what they look like. So I'm gonna go in with the mauvey shade first, and I'm not gonna use a lip liner, at least not yet, just to show you what they look like on their own. But yeah, they feel really like watery on the lips. It's such an interesting texture, and they are a little bit on the sheer side, especially this one. I would say the more terracotta shade is more pigmented. So that is a shade Softie on its own. I'm gonna take that off and apply the other shade. Let's see how pretty that is. I love terracotta shades like this, especially in the fall. I do have to go over it a couple of times to get it to look even. So that is the shade Casually Lit. Again, this is my favorite one. I love this terracotta, almost like brick red shade. So yeah, the texture, not my favorite. I feel like this is not gonna last that long because of how easily it slips around. And I think it's gonna get on my teeth eventually, but I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. But yeah, I'm decluttering these, unfortunately. So I do have one more item that I'm gonna be decluttering. This is the Physicians Formula Butter Believe It Skin Mist. It's their Muru Muru Butter Setting Spray. I don't like this one because of how much it sprays out. It gets everywhere whenever I use this, and I just don't feel like it does anything to make my makeup last longer. So I'm gonna use this one more time, but I know that I don't like this. I also don't like the scent. It's just a little too like tropical sweet for me. I normally don't like scents like that. I'm gonna really shake this up because I'm pretty sure this has a setting powder in it. Okay, yeah, it says that it combines the best features of a powder and mist to smooth skin texture and set and refresh makeup. I don't know if that means that it has a powder in it, but it kind of sounds that way. Maybe I should show you how this mists, but like, did you see that? It just like, it sprays everywhere, and I do see like little flecks of powder whenever I spray it. Let me try that one more time actually. Yeah, it looks like powder. I think Cover FX did have a setting spray like that, and I remember enjoying it, but there's something about powder in a setting spray that just gets really messy. So anyway. So that is everything for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this declutter or keep kind of video. I definitely want to do more of these, and I especially want to do a full-on makeup collection declutter in the future. I just figured for now I would try these products on camera, but other than that, I will see you in my next one. Bye.